webinar launch. Thanks, Kathy. And I should mention that even though the webinar launch is the second one, this is live and as is the resource. So the tool that we're going to be sharing with you tonight is one that's already up and running. So please feel free to go ahead and visit the resource following the webinar or during the webinar. Kathy's going to take us on a tour. So this is a live resource and we're so happy to be sharing it with you. We would, as a team, just like to respectfully start with a land acknowledgement if we could. We recognize that those of us gathering today are meeting on the lands of the Indigenous people. We acknowledge that as keepers of the land, they acted as caretakers for the places that we now live and work, and that their relationship with the land continues. We encourage each of you to learn of the specific people and treaties who are affected by settlement in your region and who continue to be impacted by ongoing colonization that impacts their rights and freedoms. In working towards true reconciliation, we recognize that a disproportionate amount of Indigenous peoples suffer the effects of brain injury, and we acknowledge the role that we may have played. To begin, just a quick few little housekeeping items. We did just want you all to know that this presentation is being recorded. And the reason for that is many people weren't able to attend the live webinars, and we wanted this educational session to be available for those who couldn't make it. So it will be recorded so that it can be shared as an educational tool for others. We would invite you to please keep your mute button on during the presentation, just so that we can limit some of those interruptions. But your thoughts and questions are certainly important to us. So if you have any, please feel free to use the Q&A button, which is located generally at the bottom of your Zoom screen on the control bar. And we'll be sure to have a couple of opportunities during our webinar tonight in order to answer those questions. And of course, a session agenda, so you can kind of see a bit of the flow for how we're going to be spending our time over the next hour. We're going to introduce you to our project team. We're going to cover a little bit of background about the project and how we've gone about our development of the CentralLink ABI Resource Library. We're going to provide you with some perspectives from persons with lived experience, which are likely some of the most important words you're going to hear tonight. Then Kathy will kindly take you all on a tour, a live tour of the CentralLink ABI Resource Library, so you can see it sort of in live action mode. And then we'll talk a little bit about your role in the process and how you can help us keep this great resource going. And then, as promised, some time for some audience questions and feedback. So as promised, our project team, who we are. I'll just invite my colleagues to wave as I introduce their names, but one of our super important team leads here is Kathy Halovanik, and she's an ABI system navigator, and she's waving to you now. She's with Central ABI Collaborative, or CAVIC, and we certainly wouldn't be where we are without her today. And then myself, my name is Marnie Lai. I'm the Justice Adapted Dialectical Behavior Therapy Specialist with the Community Networks of Specialized Care Central East, and I also feel super privileged to be on this team. And then we have two participant partners with us here today. We have Marissa Kennedy, who's a person with lived experience. And she, if Marissa can wave, she's also been a huge support for this amazing project. And she's in fact the beautiful creator of the CentralLink ABI Resource Library logo that you see. So thanks to Marissa for that, because that'll be a visual that will travel on with this resource for a long time to come. And then last but certainly not least, we have Joy Roofkamp, who's a caregiver. Hi, Joy. And Joy, I can't even express what an amazing resource she has been, from sharing experiences, resources, strong editing skills, you name it, Joy's brought it. So the four of us are so happy that you're joining us tonight. So thank you again. Now, just a quick time for a poll if we could. Now that you know a little bit about who we are, we're hoping that you could share with us who you are. It's always helpful to know who we're speaking with. So if you could complete the poll, that would be super helpful. So we have a nice mix here tonight. We have an equal number of professionals from within the ABI sector and outside, as well as some caregivers as well, family, friends, also 17%. And then half of our guests here tonight are persons with lived experience. Well, welcome to all of you. We're so happy that you're here with us, and we hope that you really enjoy this resource that we're about to share with you. Just a quick mention, and Kathy's put it here in our chat. At the end of our webinar tonight, we're going to invite you to complete a quick survey just so that you can give us some feedback on whether you found the webinar helpful and how you might feel about the resource going forward and using it, because we certainly hope you all will. And then we'll get into a little more detail about it, but we're also going to be, within the context of this survey, inviting you, if you would like to participate in another survey, maybe in 3 weeks' time, just to let us know how you have found the resource, so that we can get your ongoing feedback from that as well. So a little bit of background in terms of the project, just so you kind of have some understanding on how we ended up coming up with this idea. And certainly it's important to kind of have those optics in the background so that you can see where we landed. So this particular project was one of 6 implementation projects that received funding from the Neurotrauma Care Pathways Initiative. And this initiative was seeking to improve the care of all individuals who were receiving any type of care following a brain injury or a spinal cord injury. Of course, for the purpose of our project, we chose to focus on brain injury. So in terms of figuring out what we could do to help within this field, we needed to identify what was needed, what the community was asking for, what were the gaps that they felt existed. So there was a couple of sources that fed what these identifiable actions were. And one of them was in 2022, the Central Region started meeting and doing working group sessions whereby persons with lived experience, caregivers, and professionals working inside and outside of the field were gathering and talking about what were some key actionable solutions in order to improve access to resources. And one of these particular solutions that was identified was navigation, and that was across the board. Also, in 2022, ABI published the Gaps and Barriers report, which was established through surveys conducted via their Brain Injury Speaks program. And they were specifically seeking feedback from persons with lived experience and caregivers. And through that report, they identified that a lack of education was also a key gap area for a lot of individuals. So our team came together because we ourselves also found that as individuals, and again, there's 4 of us on the team, and important to note, what I think makes our team really special is Kathy is a professional within the ABI field. Myself, I'm a professional outside of the ABI field, but I have a lot of intersections. I have a lot of individuals that I support who are also survivors of brain injury. And then we have Joy, who's a caregiver, and we have Marissa, who's a person with lived experience. So we had all 4 of us also representing on this team, and all 4 of us experienced these same challenges that others were experiencing. We also knew that if we could create a resource library, we could address those key gaps, which were navigation and education. We also felt that creating a resource library was one that the 4 of us were equipped to do within the expected timelines of completing this project and within the funding parameters that we were given. The surveys that we did ahead of time when we were sort of going out and asking others what they might need, we found out that people were looking for better options on how to learn more about brain injury, what resources were out there. And also professionals wanted somewhere that they could go to find resources for the individuals that they were supporting, resources that could also help them improve their own education. So we had a number of different asks, and we thought if we could create this resource library, we could really support navigation and education in one amazing tool. Thanks, Kathy. So what makes us different? Because as we all know, there are libraries and resources that are out there, and there's a lot of great resources out there. But what we found was that a lot of these resources weren't comprehensive, meaning that they weren't wide-ranging. They weren't looking at the whole person, sort of the holistic needs of an individual. Because as we know, if an individual sustains a brain injury, it's not just the brain injury that maybe requires the care or attention or service. There's lots of dynamics to an individual. And we wanted to make sure that we could pull all of these great resources together in one comprehensive spot. We also wanted to make sure that we were considering the needs of the entire support circle around an individual. So not only their caregivers, but also the professionals that they're interacting with, both inside and outside of the field. It was also really important to us that we make this a centralized resource, and one that is financially accessible to all. So if an individual goes on there and they're looking for resources, there's no unexpected fees or anything like that. There's no confusion when you're searching multiple platforms and wondering, is this funded or is this not? We also wanted to make sure that this resource allowed for scalability across the province. So we're trialing it right now in the Central Lynn area, but we've done it in such a way that it also provides a wealth of resources at a provincial and a federal level as well, so that even if you don't reside in the central area, you're still going to find numerous resources which could be of support. And if this takes off and it continues to grow, then other regions across the province can add their individual resources, and on and on and on it builds. Now, certainly we need to find ways in order to keep this resource sustainable even when our funding ends, and we'll be able to talk about that going on a little bit more too. But for now, we've got it built, we've got it housed, and we're just so happy to be sharing it with you. Now, as I promised, there's going to be lots of important things shared, but we wanted to make some time for some words that really matter as well and create space for both Joy and Marissa, who have partnered with Kathy and I on this, to share some of their thoughts and experiences throughout this project and just within their own experience. So respectfully, Joy, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hello, my name is Joy. Thank you so much for being generous with your time and joining us this evening. It has been my personal honor and privilege to be the primary caregiver for a male family member with an acquired brain injury, ABI, since 2015. When he first came home from hospital, after almost 6 months, we had little knowledge and no experience in finding resources to support our family throughout our ABI journey. At that time, and due to the severity of his injury, little to no rehabilitation was provided through OHIP or York region. I had a lot to learn. Over the intervening years, our family has been able to establish some very useful contacts that have helped us with navigating many ABI supports which have been developed within our community. It has given me a lot of joy to have been able to share some of these contacts while working with the Central ABI Library project. Our family has benefited from several federal and provincial programs for persons with disabilities, resources that you can find within the Central Link ABI Resource Library. As a caregiver, I've joined peer support groups and gained a lot of much needed education about ABIs. I've recently taken advantage of the Central Link ABI Library to learn more than ever about programs and services that I did not realize existed before. The Central Link ABI resource is a practical, economical listing of many of the amazing supports and services for people at any stage of their ABI journey. Thanks to the thoughtful and careful considerations of our small project team, we have compiled a detailed listing which we hope will address a wide range of physical, mental, and socioeconomic needs of persons living with the effects of a brain injury. Whether it is to support you as a caregiver, patients, or loved ones with ABIs, happy browsing. Thank you.
And thank you, Joy, for your generous time. And next, I'll pass it over to Marissa.
Here we are. All right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for being with us this evening. As you know, my name is Marissa Kennedy, and here's my story. Following a traumatic brain injury, my life underwent an unforeseen transformation. I found myself confronted with the daunting task of adjusting to a new reality, uncertain of what normal really meant. My once high functioning roles as a mom and full time professional were replaced by a struggle for basic functionality. Everyday tasks and conversations were once second nature to me, became nightmarish challenges. Gratefully, I had an amazing support team that I'll forever appreciate. Reflecting on my journey, I can't help but contemplate the potentially beneficial impact a resource library like this could have had on my rehabilitation process. Embarking on this endeavor of launching the Central Link ABI Resource Library, a website dedicated to supporting individuals with brain injuries, is a profound mission fueled by our team's unwavering commitment to empowering those grappling with neurological trauma. Our website epitomizes a commitment to inclusivity, accessibility, and a transformative potential of technology to enhance the lives of its users. From the initial concept to the actual launch, our primary focus has been on creating a user-friendly platform that serves as a comprehensive resource hub for individuals living with brain injuries, caregivers, and numerous healthcare providers. In essence, this website has evolved into a trusted companion on my healing journey, and now it stands ready to serve as one for others. Whether offering support, disseminating information, or instilling hope during life-altering challenges, we aspire for this platform to be a resource for strength and guidance for you and for countless others. Thank you.
I hope you can see Joy there too, Marissa. She's clapping for you. Thank you so much for sharing that with all of us. And honestly, everyone, this wouldn't be where it is without Joy and Marissa. So huge, sincere thanks. So some other words that matter, which we wanted to share as well, were from some of our beta testers. So we were really fortunate to have some wonderful volunteers offer to test out the Central Link resource library for us some months ago when it was just in its infancy stage. And at that time, we got some really wonderful feedback about some accommodations and changes that we could make, which we did within the funding parameters or technological parameters that we had. But we also received some other really supportive feedback, which we wanted to share. Feedback like we were able to find valuable resources easily, a significant benefit to have all this information in one location. This one specifically a little lower down really meant a lot to me. It says, "Today I am tired. I've overscheduled my day, but I could still manage to navigate the site with little to no frustration." Quick link to current and applicable resources that we all spend a great amount of time. And I know you can all read through these on your own, but just to highlight some of the feedback we've received, and we certainly hope that you find the same experience for yourself. Of course, as with any resource or tool, we always offer a disclaimer, and I won't read through it with you all now, but it is here, and it is also listed on our website. So if you would like to read a little more closely, you can certainly find that when you visit the resource. But just a note that we all use these tools and resources at our own discretion. And lastly, just wanted to briefly summarize for everybody what our inclusion criteria, so what you will find within this resource. So what you will find, and as I previously mentioned before, you're going to find comprehensive resources that are fully or partially funded. You're also going to find resources that we've looked at that we know follow current clinical guidelines. You're also going to find resources that are available to those living in Central Ontario, the Central Ontario Health Region. But as stated, there's also going to be a wealth of provincial and federal resources that can be accessible to all. So wherever you are in this great province, you're going to be able to find some resources that would be helpful for you as well. And we also included resources. We wanted to make sure that we included resources, which you'll see when Kathy gives us a tour, that are holistic, meaning they consider the holistic needs of an entire person and their support community. So these pieces were really important to us to make sure that we gave you resources that met this criteria. Of course, as with any project, especially one which moves quickly and receives just a small amount of funding, there's always going to be some limitations, and we do just want to be transparent on that. Of course, with any projects, there's going to be funding limitations. So we don't have any funds secured following the end date, which is March 31st, 2024. However, as stated, we kept this in mind while we were creating this resource. So we've tried to create it in a way that it was sustainable with the hopes that maybe it would receive more funding. But for now, we've got it set so that it can, maintain itself where it is currently housed. And we're hoping that as resources or updates need to be made, that the ABI system navigators within Central Region right now, who's Kathy, and then across the province, if it expands, can continue to be sort of the keepers of this resource and be able to make updates periodically as needed. Of course, we've got some technological limitations that we had to work within. So you may notice that we didn't have a search bar within the website because it just wasn't within the parameters. And we would love to have one day a dedicated site or maybe a web developer for it to take it to all the places we'd love for it to go. But for now, I think we did really well with what we had to work with. Of course, time sort of had us keep it to a geographical location so that we could make sure we hit all the resources in one place, with that idea of being able to scale it larger going forward. But we worked within our time really well. Going forward, we'd also love for it to be able to be more fully staffed so that it could continue to grow and be updated more frequently. But for now, we've got it in a really good place. And then, of course, access, that's a limitation for a lot of people. We recognize it as a digital platform, so it may be challenging for those without technology to access, but we're hoping if it gets into the hands of many, many people, even those who may not have direct access to technology might have a support person who can give them the access that they need by going through the resource with them. So I'm going to pass it over to Kathy. She's going to take us on a tour, but I hope that you will find this to be a really user-friendly resource for all of you.
Okay, so before I go into my tour, well, maybe just take a moment just to see if anybody has questions about what Marnie has covered so far. So that was more about the development of the site. So
yeah, little space for questions if anyone has any.
And if not, then we'll move on. I just want to point out, so as far as actually accessing the site, so we do have our own web link. We are embedded within the larger neurotrauma pathways. So unfortunately, it is a little bit of a longer link, but it's with the /central - link that gets you to us. And then we've also developed a QR code that you will see on our postcard, which we'll talk about in a moment. So aside from having a digital platform and just being able to verbally tell people that we exist, we did recognize that it's probably important for some people to have a tangible thing that they can hold. So Marissa has a card that she can show you. So when we're showing you on the slide presentation, we can only provide it in one level, but it is a back and front card. It's not too big. The QR code will work. I mean, the QR code will actually work for you even from here. It has access to the web link and then just some very brief information so that people can have it. So we recognize that a lot of people end up with a binder or a folder where they keep all that information. So sometimes just having the information verbally, it can get lost and forgotten. So this way we hope people will have it as something to keep with them. All right, so I'm going to stop my share just so that I can go into the actual site. So just give me a moment to switch over here. Did this to me the other day too. All right, one sec. Okay, can you see that? Great.
We can.
Okay, so once you come into our site, this is the very first thing you're going to see. So basically just the title and our logo. And it is a scrolling type of website, so you will just scroll up and down to navigate. So we consider this our main page, and I'll take you through the main page and then we'll get into some of the specifics. So a lot of the information here is what Marnie has covered with us. So it's talking about why you would be coming to our site, what you would find here, that we're focused on a certain geographic area, that were designed for a wide range of people, so people with lived experience, caregivers, and professionals. And then we did develop a section for professionals that is found at the bottom of this page. It then goes over to cover just, again, the type of resources, so fully or partially funded, keeping with current clinical guidelines, and also just, again, a wide spectrum of resources. The disclaimer that Marnie mentioned is here, and then it gets into the actual category listings. So we have chosen to set up the site with 5 different main categories. So we have acquired brain injury supports and services. So that's obviously going to be one of the bigger ones of the 5. And then you will have under each of the titles a click area where you will be able to get into the pages that talk about the specific resources. So under acquired brain injury, you're going to see things that deal with advocacy, associations, peer support, community programs, concussion education, outpatient rehab, pediatric, and research. Our second category is community supports and social services. Again, the same way that you're going to click into there. This covers resources that discuss food and shelter, culture and equality, employment, income, legal, and recreation. Specialized supports and services, we recognize that a lot of individuals who have sustained a brain injury are also dealing with some other challenges. So we have put in resources related to addictions, behavioral issues, developmental disability, domestic violence, homelessness, justice, and mental health. And then our fourth category is accessibility. So we have communication, publications, equipment, technology, and transportation. And then the last main category is healthcare. So that's going to cover resources of advocacy, rights and education, medical benefits, home support, medical and professional directories. And then towards the bottom of the main page, just to touch on, we recognize that even when people have gone in and tried to find different resources, they may come away feeling like I still didn't really find what I was looking for. So we have provided a link to a contact page for all of the system navigators across the province. So as Marnie indicated, I serve a central region of the province, and then within each of the other regions of Ontario there is a navigator assigned. So once you go to that contact sheet, you'll be able to look for the person who would be for your specific geographic region. The help section that's on the main page here is really talking about navigating this specific page. We then have our project team. The really nice thing they've been able to add in for us is that if you click on Marissa or Joy's name, you will be taken to a page that has that testimony that they were kind enough to share with us today. And then the bottom part is for professionals. And that again just talks a little bit about guiding professionals on how to really get this information into the hands of the people that need it, that we recognize that professionals are going to be coming from a variety of different health and service sectors. And even though we have listed some of the ways to help us under the professional section, really that can be for anybody to be part of that. So what we're suggesting is posting a link to our site on your own agency website. So where possible, including the logo as well as the web address. And we've indicated that so that there is a visual connection for people. So a lot of people can sometimes eventually just see a logo and then they'll actually recognize what that service is going to provide to them or what that's associated with. Sharing the resource name and web address with your peers, including a link to the web page within discharge plans, and whether those plans are formalized reports or more informal verbal conversations. And that kind of taking that a step further and just reviewing a bit of the content. So maybe opening up the page with the person and highlighting a couple of key resources to get them started. And then distributing the postcards. So as was shown to you, those will be available. At this point, I will be the keeper of most of the postcards. And we are going to be mindful how we're distributing those because we just had the one-time funding. We don't at this point know if we're going to be able to order more in the future. So we will be wanting to get them out there, but in a mindful way. So as you continue to scroll down, people will be able to see what that postcard looks like. And then if they want to print a one-page version that prints out just like you see above, then that option is available. So I'm going to go back up and we'll look at some of these categories. So we'll go into the acquired brain injury supports and services. So as I indicated, under each of the main titles, you're going to find a link that will open up a new page. So each of the categories has their own page dedicated to them. And they are all set up the same. So if you can navigate one, you'll be able to navigate all of them. So it's going to have the title. If for some reason you accidentally went into the wrong category, you'll be able to click here and that's going to take you back to the page that we were just at. The top section is a help section specific to this page. And then we've put in a little tip. So even though we couldn't, for funding reasons, put in a search bar, we were able to put in or not we were able to, but there is an option when you are using a desktop type of computer to use the Control F feature. So when you do Control F, a little white box pops up. And that allows you to put in a keyword. So I am going to choose epilepsy. And then it'll come up one of 7. What it's searching for is the actual word. So it's not how many resources, but how many times that word appears on the page. But it does take you to the section where that word occurs. And then you can use the arrows to actually see where the other places where that word occurs. So again, you can use a word. It will work if you use a very short phrase, but I wouldn't put anything too lengthy into that. So that's a nice option. The setup is a table, so it is a scrolling up and down. I'm going to just go back up to the top again. The next section down are those subcategories. So you'll notice from the main page, it looks a little different, and that's because once you are into the actual category page, we further subdivided things so that you can really find the information that you need, hopefully a little easier. So for instance, if I am somebody who is looking for some education information on concussion, I can scroll down to that part, click on it, and it's going to take me to the part of the table where that information is. As far as how these parts are set up, you're going to find the name of the subcategory. Again, there's an option to go back up to the top. So if you again clicked accidentally on the wrong subcategory and you click here, it will take you back to the top of this page. And then there's a help button that will also take you to the help section of this page. All of the resources have their resource name first, then there is a brief description. The websites are all hyperlinked, so if you are to hover over them and click, you will be taken directly to the website for the resource. Contact information is either a phone number and an email, or either or. Where possible, we've tried to include toll-free numbers, recognizing that some people may not have access to free long distance. And then the last part is indicating the region served. So because we started with the central area, you're going to find 3 options. It's either going to tell you that the resource is specific to the central region of Ontario, to the provincial area, or national. And then again, the ability to scroll up and down, and then these just connect into one another. So your options are to kind of pick and choose and click yourself into a section, or you can actually start at the top and just scroll yourself all the way down if you just are wanting to know, what is all the information I can find. So I'm going to use my little click here to get me back to the top. So again, that's going to take me to the different subcategories, so I can go back and forth. A few things we want to suggest is do take the time to explore. So we've really designed this resource so that it does almost a little bit of thinking for you. So you may not have thought of a particular resource that you would benefit from, but maybe in exploring the resource pages, you're going to find something and be able even to pass that on to other people. There is a section for professionals who want a little bit more training, but again, it doesn't have to be limited to professionals. So there's going to be some areas where you may still find benefit, even if you thought that that was an area that wouldn't apply to you. And then just one other point is the pediatric section is limited mostly to really brain injury specific things. And you're going to find throughout the entire resource library different sections that would benefit. So for instance, under community supports and services, under recreation, you'll find some specific links for youth programming. So I'm going to go down to the very bottom, and you'll know you're at the end of that page when you see this little finish icon, and that tells you that there's no more resources for that category. So if I click here, I'm going to get taken back to that main page where we started. And then the only downside again, and this is one of our tech things, is it's not going to take you right back to this category. So a little bit of extra scrolling, but then you can go on to another category to look at. And if we just pick one other one, you'll see that the setup is the same. So you're going to have the title, the ability to go back to the main page, that little help area, and then it'll get into your subcategories that you can either click on or the option to just scroll through. And then the other thing I want to point out is if for some reason when you were doing your search, you happen to end up in the main Neurotrauma website. So this is the Neurotrauma Care Pathways website, of which we are a part of. So you have a few options to get to our page from here. This little 3-line icon is basically an index, and you actually will find that on our pages as well. So if you click on that, it'll pull up the index, and if you look under resources, you'll see the central link ABI resource library, and if you were to click on that, it would take you to our page. The other option is at the bottom of all of these pages is this footer, and it basically is the same thing. It's the index, but it's just viewing it out a little further. So you can see we have our own little index section that you can click on to get to our page. And then if accidentally you ended up just in their resource section, so maybe thinking that because you know that the central link is a resource, if you're on that page, and you start to scroll down, you will again see information about the central link. And if you click onto our logo, that will take you into our page. So a few options there. So again, at the top, so because if you just forget to put in central link, there's always a way to get back in. And vice versa, if you started on our page, but you want it to look at a little bit more of the clinical information about the pathway, you can do the same thing to use the index to get back to that. All right, any questions about navigating the resource? All right, so I know, Steve, you had a question in the chat. So how are the clinical guidelines being reevaluated on an ongoing basis? So part of what we base the work on is a lot of the work that the Neurotrauma Care Pathways has done. And again, it will be a challenge to have those updates done in a time-sensitive manner. So I believe like even toward, I think it was in the fall or the summer or the fall of last year that some of the concussion guidelines were updated. So if a resource, for instance, was no longer fitting in with those guidelines, it may take time to have our resource library kind of sync in with that. I think we're going to try our best. And hopefully that kind of answers your question. So we ourselves are not going to be responsible for those guidelines, but more kind of hoping to keep up to date on what's happening in the bigger field. So I'm going to stop sharing that, and we're going to go back into our slideshow, and not too many more slides left. Okay, so one of the things that we also wanted to consider is how does our resource fit into kind of a care map pathway, so that it's not just a standalone thing, but kind of working to move itself along. So we've used an example of a person with lived experience, and PLE is just for the sake of space. But what our hope is that the central link will be introduced to the person with lived experience by either being provided with a postcard or the website link. And that with the team that provided it to them, they will have a chance to look at and review some resources, maybe highlight a few to get them started. From there, that they will be able to kind of search and look for either the educational information or the provider information. And that once that's obtained, they will then go into the library, go to those specific websites, get the information they were looking for. So that might be just general knowledge that they were looking for, or it might actually be making a connection. You know, how do you make an application, speaking to someone to get more specific information on the topic. And that from there, that they would be able to have the library be an ongoing resource for themselves. So we've designed the resource so that it would be available to people, you know, right from the start of their injury, but also as they're moving forward in their journey. So it could be relevant 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road. And that also then sharing that resource with other people so that that process can start again for somebody else. And even though we use the example of person with lived experience, this could be certainly relevant to involve any caregivers, family, friends that are involved to kind of also help the person to navigate through that pathway. And some of the things that we learned from the feedback we got is that people are also looking to have this information available to share at any time. So not kind of waiting to that discharge time, but perhaps sharing it earlier on. Also using it to guide some discussions about needs. So helping to make people aware that you know, they may need to look at services to help them with transportation once they return to the community. And then also recognizing that one support can lead to another. So you may go into a specific website for one of the resources you were looking for, and in looking on their website, you further discover, some other information. So again, we're kind of helping to navigate you to the information, and from there you may find that there's a lot of options. The expected impact is really just taking in a lot of what we've already talked about. So we really want that it's going to be easier access to resources for the user, so the navigation piece, that there's going to be knowledge transfer and expansive thinking, so that education piece, facility of use, so thinking about the wide range of individuals who will benefit, so the person with lived experience, and then their support people, both personal and professional. And then our hopeful impacts are being able to maintain currency. At this point, probably it's going to be on an annual basis. In the very first year, we may see that happen a little bit more often, just as we kind of get things really rolling. And then hoping again that we'll be able to expand and scale across the province. And again, that's not necessarily going to be a project for this team, but providing other people with the tools to know what is the process we went through to create this, what were some of the limitations we had that they may have to consider, and just giving them, kind of a tool to be able to use that. The nice thing that we heard back is 86% of our beta testers felt that they would provide greater clarity of community supports available after a brain injury. And that also the benefit was going to be that you didn't necessarily need to know the name of what you were looking for, but if you just knew a general category, that the resource would kind of help to filter you through to the right spot. I talked about this when we went through the professional section on the website, but I think it's good information again. And remembering that there's lots of ways that we can use not just ourselves, but everybody else who comes in contact with this resource to be sharing it. And again, reiterating just not to wait to share. So when we did our initial survey, so this kind of goes when we were in the initial planning stages, 56% of survey respondents noted that they felt they weren't provided with sufficient resources when they were discharged. 27% noted that they were not provided with any resources. And 1/3 indicated that they would have liked to have received the resource before the time of discharge. So we know in today's health and social service sector, there's a lot of wait lists. So I think the feeling is people would like to have the information sooner so they can kind of start some of those searches and be able to have maybe a little bit better continuity of care. The other thing beta testers noted is that they saw benefit to having this be part of a therapy session. So again, not waiting till that discharge planning meeting, but maybe to have it be part of a session where you're helping somebody to navigate through the resource. How can they select certain resources that will be beneficial to them? All right, so one more quick little poll. So this one we're just asking is, having attended this webinar, do you feel the Central Link ABI Resource Library will better equip you with resources that will help you or those you support in the future? All right, so I think we'll end that. So that's, again, some nice results. So everyone so far is feeling good about it. And we're happy that that's what's happening. Again, we did have another session, or our initial session, on Monday and got similar feedback. So that's really good to hear that it's on the right track. And again, just our little survey reminder. So we will put again into the chat the link. Because we didn't do formal registration, you will have to use that link through the chat in order to open up another page for yourself to do the survey. It's very quick. I think it's 7 or 8 questions. And within that, though, is the opportunity and the invitation for you to also participate in a further survey that is about the usage. So once you've had a chance to actually use and interact with the resource library, if you're willing to participate in another quick survey, what you'll need to do is indicate your name and your email within the survey that we have the link for, and then we will connect with you in a few weeks to share that secondary survey with you. And anyone who does participate in that, we will do a random draw for a gift card just as a little thank you. And we want some special thanks. So Neurotrauma Care Pathways team has been really, really phenomenal for us. So Judy Gargaro, Mateus Wiest, Parwana Akbari, they all helped us in one way or another with a lot of different factors, particularly with some of the technical things that our team may not be as strong on. All the beta testers and survey responders who participated, you really helped us to update and change the way that the website presents itself. So that was wonderful. And then last but not least, really, really great thanks to Marissa and Joy, our participant partners. So they have been with us right from the very start of the planning and have been really engaged throughout. Our work's not quite done, so we still will, as a project team, be meeting to, again, look at distributing those postcards, making connections, finding where just to get the information out there. So that's been incredible for us. And then if you have any final questions, we just want to say thank you for joining us again this evening. If you know of anybody who was not able to attend and you think it would be beneficial, you can certainly have them either send us an email, and we will have the recorded sessions available shortly for distribution. So I'll just leave that there for a minute in case you want to take down any of the information. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Yep, we are open to the recording being shared with anybody who will benefit. So, you know, we recognize sometimes you're working in a group and one person has a particular interest in something, and it's after going that they realize, oh, I really think this would be beneficial to the other people that I work with, or the clients that they work with. I think, and I know it's very challenging, I know Joy can probably attest to this, probably the hardest group for us to get you know, live information to is the caregivers, because it can be really challenging for them to step away from those duties. Many work on top of doing caregiving duties. So if you have those opportunities, that would be really much appreciated. We've had some really good opportunity to have the information shared with some bigger groups, both within brain injury and outside. So that's been helpful as well.
And I see Beth asking if she can also share the resource, and whomever it is, please do share the resource. Doctors, other professionals, persons in your support circle, friends, neighbors, anybody. There's no boundaries to this. And as stated, not only was the webinar live, but the resource is live. So you can share it immediately, and we hope that it provides support immediately. And then I believe May had a question too about ABI. I don't know if they've got the link posted on their website just yet. Again, we've just gone live within the last couple of days, but I can tell you that they've been a wonderful ally for us. And in fact, they're going to be publishing an article about this resource as well. So certainly it will be known, and the information will be receiving, you know, it'll be received to all of those who are connected to ABI as well. So yeah, it's been that they've been a wonderful support too.